Well, you quoted the figures of $9 billion. I think I mentioned the figure of $16.8 billion in favor of Japan. But this is, as I mentioned, FAS to FAS basis. Sometimes U.S. paper have been reporting the figure of $18.9 billion. This is based on FAS for American export and CIF of American import. But anyway, the point is that there are two concepts involved. One is that why Japanese exports have been penetrating in the U.S. market so competitively and so strongly. In one sense, there have been some arguments that Japanese competition is not fair and perhaps subsidized by the governmental sources or helped by unfair foreign exchange rate. Another point is that in terms of Japanese import from the United States, Japanese market is very much closed and biased against the American import by various restrictive measures, including import quotas, tariffs, and many times non-type trade barriers. On this question, I try to explain our position. But one thing I want to mention here, which I have not mentioned in my prepared remarks, is that foreign exchange element involved in this trade imbalance question. These days we come across many arguments in this country that Japan has been deliberately undervaluing Japanese yen against the US dollar so that Japanese export can enjoy much better competitiveness in their effort to penetrate in the US market. This is completely wrong assumption. And these days there's another argument that even though that Japan may not have been deliberately undervaluing yen, perhaps Japanese government should be held responsible for failing to take any positive measures to make Japanese yen much more upvalued. Again, on this question, our position is that we strongly hope and look toward much higher yen so that our import will be benefit from such higher yen. And in that sense, we feel somewhat happy that after Japanese yen hit the bottom of 278 per dollar, now Japanese yen is somewhere around 235 per US dollar. We strongly hope that Japanese yen will continue to be upvalued and the US dollar can buy only say to 30 to 20 or even to 10. This is our position, and we strongly hope that this foreign exchange question should better be properly appreciated and understood by the U.S. business people in particular. And recently, Dr. Martin Feldstein of U.S. Chairman of Council of Economic Advisors submitted a report to the U.S. Congress, and in that economic report, he specifically mentioned that there are no foundation to accuse Japan in manipulating foreign exchange rate.
Mr. Stern?
Mr. Ambassador, at the beginning of your talk, you mentioned the increases of oil ordered by the OPEC cartel 10 years ago. Now we're seeing a reversal of this procedure. There's quite a debate in this country as to whether a precipitous drop in oil prices is good for the free world economies or whether it would be seen very disruptive to the international banking system. I'd like to get your judgment on this question and whether you think a sound and healthy price of oil would be $20, $26, $28, $30. Tell us what you think about it.
I think I mentioned in my earlier remark that we are having very heavy trade deficit in our trade with oil-producing countries, particularly OPEC nations. As a matter of fact, we've been paying about $50 billion a year as an oil bill. This is quite a huge amount of money. Therefore, the reduction or lowering of oil price in general is very much welcome by Japan, meaning that we will pay less in the form of oil bill. At the same time, lower oil price would help Japan to deflate nation's economy. In recent times, as in any other advanced industrial nation, Japanese economy has been experiencing very stagnated conditions, and the Japanese business have been asking the government to take specific and positive measures to stimulate the nation's economy. But the government has not necessarily had very effective measures to cope with the situation. Therefore, lower price of oil, which is reflected in the lower oil price, which would help stimulate the nation's economy by encouraging more investment by Japanese business communities in the domestic sectors and so on. Therefore, in general, our government and our business have expressed their favorable reaction to the recent development of lowering of oil. But naturally, we are somewhat concerned about the impact on
It's made in Japan, it's sturdy, and there's no...
Naturally, we are very much concerned with the immediate impact on debt-ridden developing nations. Certainly, lower oil price would have some, impact on their incomes in oil-producing countries. And already many of those countries, like, Mexico, have been experienced very difficult debt problems. Therefore, lowering of oil price would certainly have impact on debt problem in short while, but over the medium and longer term perspective, we feel that they will be also benefiting from a lower oil price. Then, to what extent oil price should go down, it's everyone's speculation, and even oil experts cannot give specific prediction and forecast about that. But in Washington, I come across observation and remarks and comment by various the so-called experts that oil price could go down, 28, 27, and perhaps even to $25. But no one has expressed a view that oil price would come down to $20.
Yes, sir.
At what point will the United States be able to trade with Japan on open account rather than letters of credit?
I'm not clear what you mean by open account. Open account mostly mean very much a controlled controlled means of foreign exchange transaction. And as I mentioned earlier, we have liberalized trade and flow of capitals completely. Therefore, I think the normal practice of engaging in foreign exchange transaction in the normal trade practice, like say opening a letter of credit and so on. And getting back to open account is a kind of, we must say, controlled economic systems.
You still trade on a letter of credit only.
Yes, I think so.
Will that ever be changed?
Well, I think in every business communities, in the ordinary transaction, they would demand on letter of credit in order to be secure about their transaction and payment. This is a normal practice in any free world trade.
President Toll?
Your Excellency, I think you're speaking to a group here that is fully in support of open world free trade. But there are many in this country who I think are much more concerned about the imbalance in trade. And when they see the $50 melons and $10 apples in Tokyo, they wonder if the Japanese people would not benefit by a great increase in the import of American farm products. You mentioned the political difficulties that you face in the country. Is there anything that can be done to encourage a substantial increase in farm imports?
Well, it might sound very odd that the Japanese Consumer Union supports Japanese Farmers Union, cooperatives, in their demonstration of opposing liberalization of trade, as a trade of farm products. It means that Japanese consumers are naturally very much interested in cheaper and much more accessible price for import, say, beef and oranges. At the same time, many of the times, they are also concerned with domestic farmers' problems. Because in Japan, even though we have only about 10% of our population engaged exclusively in farming, many of the rural area people are somewhat connected with farming activities in some way or another, even though they are not directly engaged. Many of them work during weekdays at, say, local government office and business offices or manufacturing companies. But a large number of, say, younger people get back to the farming activity during the weekend. Therefore, the say statistical figures of 10% of only 10% of Japanese people are engaged in farming are somewhat deceptive. And anyway, there's a strong hope that something could be done in order to have much larger volume of beef and oranges imported from overseas sources, including United States. There's always political and social difficulties. That's the reason why we've been telling American negotiators that without demanding or insisting on the complete liberalization overnight, they should and we should take much more realistic position, and we should continue to have discussion and consultation seeking for some kind of realistic solution of the problem. And I think this is a way we would be making effort in the coming months and years. It means that even though we cannot agree to the complete liberalization overnight, we have to explore the possibility how best we can expand the quotas on beef and oranges so that Japanese consumers in general can benefit from such larger supply and much cheaper imported beef and orange.
Mr. Ambassador, when this question follows from the last one, but in your defense quotas for the Japanese farmer, or import quotas, protect the Japanese farmer, who I believe you said their techniques were, immature or inferior as of now. Why shouldn't the United States use exactly the same arguments to protect the cost of the American automobile industry from Japanese influence?
I think you can appreciate that in all the country in the world, farming community have special status or enjoy, recognize some kind of special nature. It's simply because of the nature of agricultural production, which are subject to natural phenomena. In the industrial manufacturing, this is very much different situation. And in the industrial manufacturing, management and union have means to control their production in the most efficient manner, in the most competitive way. But agricultural production is definitely different. On the question of restraint of export of our manufactured product to this country, I can say that only about 2 weeks ago, our government made an announcement that from April 1983 through March 1984, our shipment of cars to the U.S. market will remain 1.68 million as in the first and second year. This signifies that our government and our auto industry are really conscious of the problem facing American auto industry and plight of UAW. That's the reason why we felt that we should express our understanding of the problem by way of the so-called voluntary restraint, rather than the negotiated agreement between the United States and Japan, exercise of restraint in a voluntary way. In this way, we feel that we have been coping with the situation in the most realistic and positive way. At the same time, not only in the auto industry, there are quite a few problems like say, steel and other. At the same time, the Japanese steel industry feels that they've been behaving very decently in recent years, simply in recognition of the particular difficulties facing the American steel industry. And I'm confident that Japanese steel mills will continue to behave in this most decent and modest way.
We only have time for a couple more questions, so I'll recognize 3 if I may. Gentleman here, gentleman there, if he still has a question. The last question is Paul.
Mr. Ambassador, one of the major criticisms leveled at the Japanese government from sources in the United States is that Japan spends a relatively low percentage of its GNP on national defense. In other words, it resides under the security umbrella provided by the United States, and that to some seems a bit unfair because it contributes to what is perceived to be an unfair economic advantage on Japan's part.
I think your comment referred to the so-called free ride by Japan without making much effort in the defense areas. Now, on this question, we have to look back the history of post-war defense effort by Japan, following the suit of Mr. Jacobson, which emphasized the history. The Japanese Constitution was introduced by General MacArthur's occupation force immediately after the war. And I think since that time on, and because of the experience in the war times, Japanese people are really peace-minded, and we have no intention of changing Constitution. And I don't think any American people want to have Japan revise the constitution and become to a strong military power again. That much is, I think, is clear. Then, within that constraint, how best Japan should make effort to improve its own defense capabilities. That's a matter which our government and our people have been making, have to find the national consensus in the first place. And certainly in the 50s, 60s, well, in the 60s and early 70s, there was some kind of hesitancies and doubt to what extent Japan should make effort in the self-defense capabilities. But during the 1970s, particularly after Afghanistan, the Japanese people have come to have much better and much more realistic appreciation of the need for Japan to maintain its own self-defense forces for the self-defense interest of Japan. This is a process where the Japanese government have been making effort to improve defense capabilities. In a sense, we have started from the scratch, some would say, at the later stage of the full development in the post-war world situation. In the meantime, we have a problem and constraint of financial problems situation, meaning that Japanese government, and in the U.S. government, have been facing very serious, huge budget deficit, and currently our budget is prepared by relying about 1/3 of its own government bond or government debt. So, in spite of these huge government budget deficit and in spite of huge accumulated government bonds, our government has been making effort to improve defense capabilities at the sacrifice of other major items like, say, social welfare, education, public works. Only in the 1983 budget, only defense and economic aid to developed nations have been given increase over the previous year, when other major items remain zero or even smaller reduction as compared to previous years. And another constraint we are facing with is that our Asian neighbors, somewhat sensitive feeling towards possible Japanese military development. Our Asian neighbors still have bitter memory of the war times, and they still maintain very sensitive feeling towards the Japanese defense effort. You will recall that when President Marcos of the Philippines and President Suharto of Indonesia came to Washington last fall, both of them expressed very strong, misgiving and apprehension about the Japan defense effort under the pressure of the U.S. government. Recently, the Prime Minister of Malaysia came to Japan and expressed the same concern, and after meeting our leaderships, the Prime Minister of Malaysia left Japan with the satisfaction that Japan would never become military power again. So, against these constraints, our government has been making effort. It means that in spite of such criticism of free riding, we think that we believe that we've been doing as much as we can against changing international situation surrounding Japan, particularly Soviet stepped up military deployment in our northern territory, Siberia, and their neighbor maneuvering in the Japan Sea and Western Pacific.
Mr. Ambassador, Japan is now the only major country that is considering deep-sea whaling and seriously opposed to international whaling, including the 10th moratorium on taking members sanctions against the countries that are trying to suppress the international attempts to declare war on Venezuela. I wonder if there's any comment about those actions about this, and if you see time when Japan join the rest of the world in trying to preserve the population. Perhaps the American people.
This is very ticklish issue because it could invite very emotional feeling on many of the people. But on this question, our government position is that Japan is a faithful member of International Whaling Convention and International Conference based on that International Whaling Convention. And we've been taking the position that if the scientific expert of that commission should come out with specific finding and scientific recommendation about the whaling stocks or population, Japan would abide by the recommendation on the basis of scientific data. That's the reason why in recent years we have reduced the number of ships engaged in such whaling in Antarctic and others. At the same time, so far, International Whaling Convention has given some kind of quotas. That's the reason why we've been allowed to catch whale on the basis of the quota approved and allocated officially by the International Whaling Conference. And as long as they recognize this convention's provision and obligation, Japan will remain a very faithful party to this convention. But what we want to have is that much more positive argument should be conducted on the basis of scientific data and scientific studies by the scientific experts in terms of International Whaling Convention.
This will have to be the last question, Mr. Palmer.
Your Excellency, I don't know whether you have the time. I wanted to ask if you would like to comment upon the United States and the Japanese view of the world, international affairs, at which points they are similar, at which point they separate, at which point they differ.
One clear difference is historic and cultural, the historical differences. But regardless of such differences, we share the common values of freedom and democracies. We are very proud that on the basis of such common sharing of the common values, Japan has been and will continue to be the most trusted ally of the United States.